Hello, and welcome to episode 26 of What If Civilization Started Over. If you missed the last one, we didn't really talk about much, so yeah, it was quite a short one. But basically, we're about to have the War of French Succession as Galicia and France are threatening to unite with each other, and that means that some bad stuff is going to go down. Andalusia and Belgium and Spain, as well as Spain's allies, obviously, will all join in on this war, basically saying, hey, you guys cannot unite with each other. You would become the most powerful country in the world. And right now it's ambiguous whether it's Belgium or Spain or Andalusia or England, but it's definitely not either of these guys. But united, these guys would be the most powerful in the world. And so they don't want that. And so, yeah, shenanigans will ensue as this is mostly going to be a European affair, except that it's not, because it's definitely going to spill over into the colonies. But yeah, let's get right into it. I'm going to turn off alliances because it's pretty clear who's in which alliance. It's not very confusing. But anyway, it's going to start with Belgium thinking that they will just immediately win the war and take the capital of Brittany/France. That'll be it. However, that doesn't happen as their assault goes decently well at first before getting pushed back. And this is kind of an embarrassing defeat for Belgium this early into the war as they lose a bunch of their land. However, never fear, Spain and Andalusia are here as they plan to take the capital of Galicia, and they are doing better than Belgium is, which is really embarrassing for Belgium. And Spain and Andalusia being allied is kind of fun because they didn't used to be allied like 10 years ago. They were pretty solemn enemies, but Galicia kind of the royal family will flee as they kind of become Aquitaine for a temporary period of time. But some stuff is going to be brewing in the colonies. First of all, Andalusia sees an opportunity to seize the Britannian colonies as they seize the Yucatan colony that was at one point a colony of Aquitaine before Aquitaine stopped existing. And they also just go down Central America, which is very lightly defended, as Brittany is using all of their troops here. The Pyrenees are acting as a really good border, as Spain is kind of prevented from invading up into here. But Andalusia will make their puppet invade into France's puppet. However, France is doing a decent job as they are trying to kick Belgium out of the war. However, Belgium is refusing to leave the war, which is annoying for them because Spain has finally broken through the Pyrenees a little bit. However, another defensive line has been set up for Galicia, but Galicia's colony is starting to become a little bit unruly. Andalusia wants to take back Venezuela, which they lost not very long ago, like probably only 10 years ago or so. So they want to take it back as they start an invasion into Venezuela. And at this point, Spain goes to them and is like, what are you doing? Like, you're not helping us in this war. You're just trying to seize stuff for yourself. And Andalusia is like, you want me to leave the war? And Spain's like, touche. England officially joins the war. They were already in the war, but they make a landing on Brittany, and start basically going in behind the Belgian lines, allowing Belgium to start doing well against France. However, France has a secret weapon, which is that pretty much all of Eastern Europe wants France to win this war, as they start promising stuff to a lot of countries. And I'm not going to draw in the alliances. In fact, I'm just going to erase these alliances. I'm only going to use this layer for permanent alliances. I feel like temporary alliances are not worth showing. But Poland and Scandinavia will be promised stuff if they join in on the war, as Scandinavia quickly seizes Belgium's colony in Sweden, fails a few times to land on the island that Copenhagen is on, which probably has its own name. Actually, might be Copenhagen Island. Anyway, Croatia connects themselves to their exclave, while Poland starts invading the German areas of Belgium, like so. So even though England will hand their territory over to Belgium to help Belgium in the fight, and Belgium is kind of winning against France in this front, they now have a bunch of new fronts to worry about, as Scandinavia finally does land over here. Fortunately for Belgium, their colonies are safe because there's not that many people living there and whatever. But the same is not true for England, especially Galicia, but also to a lesser extent Brittany. And remember, they're not united yet. They're threatening to unite. That's what this whole war is about. But Galicia will basically start sending some troops down, and the same will happen with France, but they'll only do it west of the Andes, as they send troops down to capture these major cities. and a naval landing takes the Falklands, and this, as England's colony, is kind of out of English control. But this will just anger England even more as they withdraw pretty much all of their colonial forces, leaving them to kind of eventually be occupied. But they withdraw all of their forces in the colonies and instead finally take the capital of Brittany, as both of the defending countries' capitals have been taken. However, it's not that bad, as Belgium is really not doing well, starting to collapse from within, as pretty much all of Eastern Europe is against them, and Rome will basically attempt to shake off their shackles, and they won't be successful at it, but Andalusia will govern them even more tightly, pretty much annexing them into Andalusia proper because of Rome's attempts to break off their shackles, and Andalusia is going to be distracted as they're mostly focusing on the colonial theater, which has slowed down a lot as it kind of has come to a halt, as Andalusia is kind of not very strong. Andalusia's Senegalese puppet will then be invaded into by Guinea, and it will basically surrender without Andalusian permission, which angers Andalusia, but they know that Andalusia can't do anything about it. Because Cape Verde isn't taken, Andalusia will set up a new puppet there. Yeah, so Belgium is really not doing well. They are very much suffering from this war, and it is apparent to all involved as they lose their entire border with Poland, and they even start pushing further, as the French puppet here will be able to start pushing into Rome first of all, as Poland will take this city, and Scandinavia will land in Jutland, starting to take Jutland. And at this point, England is starting to get concerned, so they will stop their invasion of Europe, which is good for these guys, as they take a brief diversion to just show Scandinavia who's boss, as they quickly seize Scandinavia's capital to try and force them out of the war, which works. However, Scandinavia basically requires that occupying Sweden until the end of the war, just in case maybe something happens to Belgium. However, England then counters and says, fine, but we get to take half of Norway. And the Scandinavian government says yes, which makes these people really upset, and they don't want to join back with Scandinavia. They want to become independent now, but for now, they're just their own thing. England is starting to get pushed out of France because of that little endeavor that they made. However, it also, getting Scandinavia out of the war isn't going to matter, because the most dictatorial country in the world, not the worst country to live in, but definitely among the worst, definitely the worst developed country to live in, is none other than Belgium. And so the newly freed and then unfreed areas of Denmark will revolt as soon as they are unfreed, and they basically say, we want democracy. We know this country was founded on the basis of democracy, and they start helping Poland to try and get their independence. And then the Belgian dictator will be overthrown by his own people, as they decide to basically leave the war and start pursuing a platform of democracy. And as they start setting up their country, they are forced to cede a large amount of land over to a lot of countries in order to start setting up a Belgian democracy. They also have to give some land over to Croatia. Some land goes over to Poland, and actually Poland demands a ridiculous amount of land, but they are kind of willing to give up a lot. Think of this like the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk in a way, if you know what that is historically. And Denmark demands a little bit of land as well. And the Netherlands kind of tries to invite Denmark, say, hey, we're a democracy now, you should join back up with us. But Denmark is like, no, we've had enough of your country. We don't trust you guys to not turn back into a dictatorship. Sayonara. And so Denmark will become its own country. It will, however, be a democracy. And as you can see, Belgium has lost a lot of territory, and also they've left the war. And this is going to be a massive turning point in the war, as now France is going to start putting all of their resources into this English outpost, fully kicking them off of the continent. And meanwhile, Galicia is going to send troops into Spain, trying to push through the Pyrenees, but they won't be very successful at it. However, Andalusia has finally unstalled the colonial war, marching their troops through the Darien Gap in order to have a surprise attack, because they didn't think anyone would be stupid enough to march their troops through the Darien Gap, but Andalusia did, as they start basically sending massive waves of troops into the Amazon rainforest. And really, these guys don't actually control the Amazon rainforest, so if I show Andalusia having it, it's because they have both of the coasts, so there's no way for them so Andalusia is the only one who can realistically access this. But they will start seizing the few major cities that do exist here. Then they will try doing the same in the east, but it won't be as successful. So this is kind of the area they effectively control at this point, as the colonies will retract themselves from the English colony. However, the English colony has no troops there, if you'll remember. However, they will start pushing back against Andalusia over here, but not too effectively, as Andalusia still has troops all the way in Galicia's colony in Brazil. However, they did need to retract some troops from Europe, withdrawing to the Pyrenees. At this point, England decides that the war isn't worth it, but they weren't really doing much anyway, so it's not like that's going to be a big change. So it is just Iberia versus France now. And a massive change is about to come, as a major rebellion will break out in southern Brazil, of all places. And these guys basically are rallying behind the old dynasty that ruled Brazil. It wasn't actually that long ago, so it kind of makes sense. It was only like 200 years ago that Brazil fell. Actually less, probably like 100 years ago maybe. Feels like a good amount of time. But they will basically immediately start chasing Galicia's troops out of Brazil, and they know the Amazon rainforest way better than Galicia does, as these are actual like native people, whereas Galicia was mostly using their own troops. And Galicia will make the executive decision to withdraw all of their troops from Brazil in order to focus on this war, and that actually ends up helping them, as they have so many troops that are coming back home that they're able to like make a massive front line into this, freeing their capital. And Andalusia is actually suffering pretty badly, as Brazil is starting to fight back against Andalusian troops, trying to like liberate South America from all these oppressors. So Andalusia will cut a deal with France, and they'll basically say, hey, we will let you guys unite. However, you have to make a deal, which is that we get to keep a large portion of your colony, and you have to give Brazil independence. And France will accept that because they kind of really needed to unite. And at this point, Spain is kind of like, what's the point of remaining? Everyone else is backing these guys uniting. We don't really have a choice. And so Spain will reluctantly agree to withdraw as long as they get their land back, which they do. And so the winners of the War of French Succession are the French, as they will effectively annex Galicia, and they will also officially annex their French puppet state, as well as a bit of land from Andalusia in this Roman land, because I feel like it will look better. As France is now, even without their colonies, the most powerful state in the world. However, I did just mention they lost their colonies, as Brazil and Andalusia will go ahead and make a peace treaty, and it's not going to be very favorable for Brazil. And actually, Spain wanted to get in on this as a condition for them agreeing to end the war. So Spain will get this Venezuelan territory. But we do need to now have an ideology, as Brazil will be a pure monarchy, which is interesting. But they actually are among the strongest states in the world. And France does not keep this land. But the Galician colonies in Africa will also transfer to France, as well as the Galician territory in Australia. And you can see where I'm going, as France is now looking for more avenues for colonization. Oh, and I forgot, Andalusia will declare war on Guinea, and let's just say things do not go well for Guinea, as they things do not go well for them, and they will be fully annexed into Andalusia as a colony rather than a protectorate, because Andalusia is just mad at them for daring to take an Andalusian protectorate. So Andalusia really wants to claim the title of strongest country, but they can't, and France is going to show them why. As soon as France unites, they will make a massive claim into Africa, as they will... France will make a massive territorial claim in Africa, and none of the European powers, not even Andalusia, will be willing to dispute it. And then France will sign an agreement with England, as England is having kind of beef with this country right here. And they will go take the capital while France will rummage through the countryside. And it turns out that England and France were quite friendly, as this country will fall to the invaders. As the French and English colonies expand, and South Africa will take the remaining bit. And these guys' capital will be in their only city, as they are still a French protectorate. And the remainder of this land will be claimed by England with French backing, as Africa gets divided up. And just to seal the deal on Africa being divided up, Libya will officially claim a large portion of the Sahara. Egypt will claim some of the Sahara, and Nigeria will claim this much. So the Sahara has been fully divided up, although these are mostly just claims. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.